letting us rearrange a little bit here. Got you, Dave. Okay. So our next item, agenda item number 9, our chair, as he stated, is on the Corps' Delta Islands and Levees Feasibility Study. And let me just provide a little bit of an introduction first, and then I'll go ahead and introduce our panel members. I will say that one of our members, Mr. Cowan, has to leave at 2:30. So depending on how long the discussion is, if he has to get up and run out of here, it's not because of the questions or anything. It's just that he had a prior commitment he couldn't get out of. So on April 14th of this year, the Corps Sacramento District released a draft Delta Islands and Levees Feasibility Study and an accompanying environmental impact statement. And the executive summary from the feasibility study is attachment 1 in your meeting packet. This feasibility study was initiated in 2006 by the Corps at the request of the Department of Water Resources, who is the non-federal sponsor for the study. The purpose of this feasibility study is to determine whether there's a federal interest in providing funding for and implementing flood risk management and ecosystem restoration improvements in the Delta. And the study did several things. It identified flood risk management and ecosystem restoration issues and opportunities in the Delta. It developed and evaluated measures to solve these identified issues. It formulated and compared alternatives specifically for ecosystem restoration, and it identified a tentatively selected plan, or TSP, for implementation of ecosystem restoration. The results of the study indicated no federal interest in structural flood risk management improvements, but again did indicate an interest in one ecosystem restoration improvement. Because of the study's focus on flood risk management and ecosystem restoration and the results of the study, the council staff did several things. We went ahead and met with staff from the Corps Sacramento District back in May, and we did this to gain a better understanding of the study itself, the criteria, the approach that was taken, the planning and policy guidelines and constraints, and to have a bit more discussion around the findings of the study, especially the lack of federal interest in the flood risk management improvements. And in addition to that, this was during the public comment period, which was open through June 2nd. So this helped us to better formulate some comments that we provided on June 2nd to the Corps related to the study. And the comment letter is attachment 2 in your meeting packet. And essentially what we did in the letter was we provided comments about the tentatively selected plan for the restoration project, which is, and I know we're going to talk a little bit more about the project, so I won't go into great detail here, but just wanted to provide an overview of the letter. We provided comments on the tidal marsh habitat project that was described in the feasibility study, and our comments were related to the fact that, related to location of the study, which is outside of our Delta Plan priority habitat restoration areas. We had some comments related to sediment movement, removal, and transport that's necessary for the restoration project, and some elevation considerations based on the policy in the Delta Plan related to restoring habitats at appropriate elevations. We also expressed our concerns at the lack of the lack of structural flood risk management improvements. And I think we'll touch a bit on the difference between the structural flood risk management improvements and non-structural. And some of the non-structural elements are in the feasibility study. We also expressed our thoughts about the potential for future feasibility studies to be able to broaden the criteria around flood management. Risk improvements to include more non-traditional risk management options, including additional economic analyses and damages around water conveyance, water quality, and transportation factors. And then lastly, we wanted to open the door and leave it open in terms of expressing our interest in future opportunities to have state-federal partnerships around these types of feasibility studies, around restoration in the Delta, as well as flood risk management. And I know we've had some discussions amongst staff about these potential opportunities and how to continue to coordinate with one another. But we wanted to make sure to put that in writing. We realize we'll probably need to talk to a broader audience of core management and staff around those opportunities and around the planning and policy constraints that really shaped the results of this particular study. So the purpose of the panel presentation today is to provide information about the feasibility study and about its results, to have an opportunity to bring not only staff from the Army Corps, but DWR as the non-federal sponsor, to come in and talk about the approach, the opportunities, the challenges, the criteria. So much, or very similar to the briefing that we had and the meeting we had with the Corps staff. It was very helpful. We wanted to provide that opportunity here. We also wanted to have a bit of discussion about how to continue to coordinate these efforts, and especially how to, again, do information exchange around our levee prioritization study, around the feasibility study, and how we can take data and information that's been generated through the Corps' work, pull it into ours, and then how our study, as a more detailed, more inclusive study in terms of benefits and costs, could perhaps inform future efforts that the Corps carries out. And then, obviously, we'd like to, we're seeking ideas and guidance from the Council in terms of continued coordination and how to keep that door open to discussions, perhaps all the way up to headquarters around policy and planning constraints that could possibly become more flexible for future studies. So with that, let me quickly introduce the panel members. I'm going to start with Brooke down at the end, and hopefully I say your last name correctly. Brooke Schlenker. Oh, great. And Brooke is the person who actually did the presentation for us, and she's going to do the bulk of the presentation today, but she's the lead planner for the feasibility study, and she's out of the Corps Sacramento District. Next to her is Mark Cowan, the other Mark Cowan.
The real Mark Cowan.
That's right. And I should say that Mark and I, our girls are the same age and they're best buddies, so Mark and I are friends as well, so we joke about his name a lot. He is the chief of the Water Resources branch in the Planning Division of the Sacramento District, and he oversees all of the civil works planning and economic studies within the Sacramento District, so he's here representing management and their viewpoint on the study and this discussion today. And then we have Dave Mraz back. He joins us quite frequently, and we're grateful. Dave's from Department of Water Resources. He's the chief of the Delta Levees and Environmental Engineering branch. And, of course, DWR, again, is the non-federal sponsor for this study. So I think with that, maybe we'll launch in. I'll turn it over to you, Brooke. We'll launch into the PowerPoint and then have some discussion after that. Okay?